for the Jets and their focus right now, obviously we're honed in on offensive linemen, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, the bench press is nice. You can see what kind of upper body strength that has. I mean, they do use those muscles when they're punching with their hands and setting like that. The 40 time doesn't matter what doesn't matter what your offensive guard runs a 40 time, but you will look at his 10-yard splits. How explosive is he? How quick can he get off the line? So on and so forth. And I think we talked about this last week. I'm not sure if it was here or not, but
Mhm.
historically, every lineman that the Jets get, there's a marker. Like Joe Douglas hasn't drafted a guy who has had worse than a 1.8 split in that 10-yard dash. So Jets fans, keep that in mind when you're watching or when you're looking that up, or if you watch or looking up the numbers that these guys do for these offensive linemen. 1.8 seems to be the magic number for Joe Douglas.
Yeah,
You know,
those RAS scores. For those of you guys that don't know what that is, it's a relative athletic score, and it's based on your athletic testing. The guys that Joe Douglas has drafted, I believe in the top 3 rounds, they all have like an 8 or above RAS score. And the only players that didn't, I believe, were Ashton Davis, who didn't test because he was injured, Zach Wilson, who didn't test because he was so high, as a quarterback,
yeah,
he wasn't going to have to. But you would have imagined both those guys would test really well. I
yeah.
believe.
Michael Carter the
Mhm.
second tested out under a 6. Max Mitchell was pretty bad.
Mhm.
Um,
Those
and
are
then
later round
James,
picks, though. Top 3
yes,
rounds are all
okay,
like
top 3
very
round, yeah,
high.
yeah.
I know Zuniga tested well.
He tested
Um,
he tested phenomenally well.
yeah, Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, all those guys like Becton, like all the RAS scores were really good on a lot of these players.
Hmm.
Um, AVT, I don't remember
He didn't
offhand.
test. I don't
Okay.
think he tested. I could be wrong, but I don't think he tested. Somebody might be able to check that, but
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what winds up happening.
yeah.
Is there any player in particular that you're kind of keeping an eye on as like, let's say one wide receiver, one offensive lineman that might pique your interest a little more?
Well, in testing, there's 2 offensive linemen. One in testing and one in measurables that I'm going to be really honed in on. In measurables, I'm curious to see what how JC Latham weighs in at now. Um, those of you know me, those of you who follow me, those of you who listen to me, I'm a big supporter, big advocate of JC Latham. I think he's a phenomenal tackle. He's my 3rd tackle on the board right now, and he's really pushing number 2. When I'm done with all my reevaluations and finally set my final board, I wouldn't be surprised if he's at number 2.
Mhm.
If he does push 350 plus pounds, that's going to be a concern for me. I don't think he will. Even at whatever they say he weighed in at at the end of the year at 357 pounds at Alabama. If it was that high, I'm telling you this much, he carries it very well.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm going to look at. And then testing wise, the name that I'm very very curious to check out is Armarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia, because he checks all the boxes off in regards to the measurables. Height, weight, length, all that stuff is elite. And on film, albeit limited because he only played 820 snaps throughout his collegiate career. He shows the part of an extremely athletic tackle, somebody who I think can make the move right away over to the left tackle. Is if he tests out of the off the charts, is that a guy that's going to kind of pique the interest of Joe Douglas? To me, it would make sense. It would make sense that an athletic freak that has the measurables, that has the length, that Joe Douglas likes would pique his interest. Now, that's that would be a real kind of swing for the fences kind of pick if Joe Douglas considered him at 10. I don't think that Armarius Mims is going to go much further than the top half of the first round. So it's an interesting name. It's he's a guy that I'm going to hone in on during his testing for sure. And then on the wide receivers, like this might be a kind of a lower target, but I'm real curious to see how Luke McCaffrey tests. I'm real
Hmm.
curious. He's definitely a day 3 guy, but he's got the makeup. He's got he's got the physicality. He's got the wherewithal. Knows awareness on the field, off the field. Just you could tell his dad was Ed McCaffrey. You could tell that he's been coached up albeit in a limited, small window, that he knows how to play receiver. My whole thing with him is that he's never shown to be like that uber athletic, kind of
Mm.
kind of a little slow, no real burst. So if he tests out well, like he could be a guy that to me would be a great idea in that, fourth, fifth round area, because I think he can come in and help a team. I'm not talking like Puka Nacua help a team, but I think he can come in and be a contributor right away, and he'll definitely help on special teams. So that's a name that I'm interested in seeing how he tests out. There's some other guys that might be a little bit higher off the board where I question their true, speed and athletic ability. Guy like Rome Odunze. I don't think he's the most athletic guy in the class. Not definitely doesn't have that second gear. Guys like his teammate Jalen Polk, same thing. Jalen Polk reminds me a lot of Rashee Rice, and Rashee Rice had a great great rookie season for Kansas City. But I remember watching his tape and liking him, and then watching him live at the Senior Bowl and being like, "Yeah, this guy's not it, man. He's just, looks like he's running in mud." But I digress. It ended up working out for him. So those are guys that I think I'll be interested in taking a look at during the Senior Bowl drills. One more, and I'll give you Spencer Rattler. I want to see how he throws, man. Yeah, I want to see how he throws. Like, he's kind of slowly climbing up a lot of people's boards. I like him better as a pro prospect than the likes of Penix and Nix, both of them. I think he has the arrows pointing a little bit more north on his capabilities of being a viable starter in the league than those two. So it'll be interesting. The quarterbacks are going to be few and far between, the guys that are throwing. So he should get a lot of run, get a lot of chance to impress out there. So